Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I was requested by a friend and one of my teachers to make a PowerPoint and a presentation for all of you who are going to be starting your A-levels next year in September, or for those of you who will be sitting your exams in 2021. And basically these are my top tips for how to succeed in A-level geography, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and how you need to be aware of some of the issues that you're going to come upon, not how you prevent them, how you will come upon these issues, because it happens to every student. And it will be an issue in the future that you just need to know how to manage rather than prevent. So I've broken it down to the 5 main topics we're going to talk about today, and I will leave a timestamp for each of them. So that way, if you only want to focus on one of these issues, then that way you can just skip straight to them. Don't want you watching the whole thing for no reason. And it's basically broken down to revision guides, do's and don'ts, the importance of your exam structure, and by that I mean the layout of the exam paper. Why do you need to know it? What's the benefits of that? Your exam technique, the importance of case studies, which you will all know, being geographers, and how much we need a case study, how do you lay them out, and then managing your coursework, which I'll develop on a bit later. Again, please like, subscribe, comment, follow my Instagram, Jamie_the geographer, and how this could be brilliant, because I really need you to just put comments out there, likes, share it, or follow my Instagram handle so you know what bits that you might like, and I could happily send you any PowerPoints that you might need, or make a video that you request. This is all for what anybody might want during lockdown, any revision tips, revision videos. I'm starting one on the water and carbon cycle soon, hopefully, because that's normally where everyone starts with the A-level, and we'll just see where it goes from there. So revision guides, what to do. They're great starting points. I'm not going to dispute that. They are brilliant because they give you the absolute pure basics you need for any of your A-levels, especially the geography A-level. They're key and basic information for your course in terms of key terms, key content, but also what you'll be assessed on, what exam papers you have to sit in, what order is the exam paper going to be sat, how long is it, what percentage of your exam is it worth. They give some great information broken down that sometimes the specification can be a bit too wordy for you to understand. And they also give you great examples of exam questions that you can utilize, because obviously our course is still new relatively, and you don't have access to as many papers. I believe there's only 2 papers that are in access at the moment, and you won't even get to use the paper that I would have sat this year because it's still being held down until the resits. So they're great examples of your 4, 9, 20 markers that you could get given. And they also give you great additional notes that your teachers may not give you. Not that you should not trust your teacher's notes, they'll be the main body of your content. But sometimes there are additional case studies that you need, because if you're an A-level geographer watching this already, you would know that normally one case study is not enough to get the top band or the top marks for your answer, because you often need a range of different examples, and they often give some mini examples that are good to slip into your essays or your 9 markers. There's some good ones that I'd recommend. Good and old easy, just like GCSE, the CGP guide. It's classic, it provides the key basics, it gives you good examples of how to formulate your exam structure and what case studies that you might need. Brings some brilliant stats and how to undertake those stats tests. So it gives you some key facts, some key knowledge about maybe the Amazon rainforest, but also for statistical tests such as chi-squared, Spearman's rank, those ones as well. And they're reliable, and they're like the questions you're getting given in the exam. Because while these are not endorsed by AQA, they do work very closely with the exam boards to make the content appropriate. Maybe not to the level that you need, but they're definitely a good starting point as well. Then the next one is your exam practice book. Now, this is a good example because they give you a range of questions. They could be exam case study focused, or they could give you a range of concepts, because sometimes in your exam, you will not be given one that is based off of a content case study. Sometimes you could have to draw upon different knowledge points in your essay, very much within the physical geography at least, human less so, more based on your case studies. But I believe it's also very good value for money. I can't remember the price, but I remember it was very good for the amount of questions you've got. And it's also made by the Oxford Press, which is where you'll get your textbooks used for normally. So it works in conjunction with them. So it helps you to formulate your answers based on what you're being taught. However, these are the don'ts of these revision guides. Please don't rely on them. They only provide the basics that you'll need for your A-level. Trust what your teachers are giving you, as they will have the A star level of information that the books don't. I remember using my book as a godsend early on in my A-level, and then when I started revising, looking back at the notes that my teacher gave me, some key terms, some key words, some key concepts, they weren't even mentioned in the revision guide, they just hadn't considered them because it was only for a basic level, which, as I've written, is maybe a B, a C grade at minimum best, really. I don't often get an A grade. I've not seen somebody who's gotten an A just based off the revision guide. It's not like GCSE. And then sometimes, like I've said here, the information isn't to as high a level, or the case studies that you've used are appropriate, because often there's a case study that you might use that maybe actually be better that your teacher's giving you, or you may need more than the one case study as it only gives you the pure basics. So like I've said, with water and carbon, they only state you need 2 case studies, which is a rainforest and a flood case study. But I remember, I think I've had about 10, 15 case studies for water and carbon given to me by my teacher, because your answers need to formulate around a world, real life example. Geography doesn't, it's not about theory, it's not about colouring pencils, it's about applying what we know to the real world. And that is why you could be given something, you need to have broad level of case studies. Moving on, it's your exam structure that's also key. I have to shout this at my friends so many times because they don't know it, but you need to learn the layout of your exam paper, because that way you know what is going to come up in terms of when your optional topics come up, what questions do you get asked in each topic, and that way it could differ, because in the first 2 questions they have the exact same structure, but in the third section of your exam paper you have some longer response questions. These are worth more marks, but people often actually forget that. So I've written at the bottom here, have a plan before you go in. If you know you're somebody who's often quite tight on time, do section C's first. Do your hazards, your ecosystems, or your urban and your population resources. Do those questions first, because they are worth more marks, and you'll probably feel better because you've accessed longer mark questions. And be aware of what order they come in. Please be aware that it's always 4, 6, 6, 20, 4, 6, 6, 20, 4, 6, 9, 9, 20. That is what you need to know. Most people forget that, and also be aware that sometimes you won't be given a data response. I moan about this on and on in the last few videos. You may be given 6-mark data response, but you also may have to do a statistical test such as chi-squared or Spearman's rank. I have uploaded videos for those as well. I'm going to leave links for them in the description box. You can watch all of them. I think they'll be brilliant. Like I've written here, here we are, dragging it on. Section A, water and carbon, 4, 6, 6, 20. Same for section B. Keep in mind, again, your optional topic, you'll be given deserts, coasts, or glaciers. Deserts will appear first in the exam paper, then coasts, then glaciers. So if you're doing coasts or glaciers, remember to skip ahead a few pages, because you won't actually be doing the deserts question. We've had some people who did answer the deserts one after not studying it. Then there's hazards or ecosystems. That's all you'll have for paper 1, physical. Then you move on to section 2 in your paper 2, human, where you'll have global governance, your compulsory topic of a 4-marker, a 6-marker, a 6-marker, and a 20-marker. Then changing places, which could be a 4-marker, 6-marker, 6-marker, 20-marker. Then finally, again, section C, which is a longer response questions. These are 48 marks. That way you know what to look at best. I always say you need to know what you're looking into before you start an exam paper, because at the end of the day, if you want to get your results, your qualifications to move on to whatever you want to do, whether that's geography, whether that's acting, whether that's being a hedge fund manager, whether that's being a bin man, it doesn't matter. Every career is amazing, but please give yourself the best step up that you can by knowing what you're sitting. There's no reason for not giving yourself the best chance because you just didn't know what you were going to get given in terms of a layout. Then more importantly than your structure is your technique. This is the hardest jump for people who do A-level from GCSE, because often, yes, you will have to learn more case studies, but that's just rote learning. That's just learning more facts. Your technique is what will bring up your ability as a geographer, being able to respond to longer questions, bring in greater level of ideas, being able to make inferences as you're writing your essay. So, if this leads to this, this must lead to that. And often when you use your 20-mark essays, you'll have to give at least maybe 3 or 4 case studies, or maybe 2, but in brilliant depth. Whereas in your 9-mark, because you often only had 1 case study you needed to know, or maybe 2 in less detail. This is because, and why I say that is because your 6, your 9, and especially your 20 markers, there's a set structure that the examiners want to see in terms of what do they want from you, your knowledge and your processes, your concepts, your scales, your assessment, your conclusions, and your evaluations. These are what you need to access the key marks. And even more important, examiners like up-to-date case studies. I don't think there's anything wrong with using a case study from 1997, but the world has moved on a lot since then. I remember one of my teachers, brilliant teacher that I've had this year, she taught us the 2009 case study, which I'm sure a lot of other students have studied for the Alberta wildfires in Australia. But also thinking ahead, she taught us the 2019 wildfires that we had this year because it accommodated our temporal scale that we needed for our 20-mark essays, but we also then allowed us to compare 2019, a more recent case study, because this is, oh yes, examiners are thinking they know their stuff, they're on top of it. That's more impressive than somebody who's just learnt it from their book and not really put much thought into it. Like I said here, your exam technique, your 9 markers, they're very similar to GCSE. They're less focused on a specific topic, and often at A-level, they will probably more get you to compare 2 ideas. So what I've given you an example here. If you've not studied the A-level, don't worry, you will. If you have studied A-level, this will make more sense to you. But for the 4th bullet point here, an example I've got is, to what extent do fortress developments affect the perspective of both insiders and outsiders? So fortress developments is a key topic in contemporary urban. The insiders and outsiders is a key topic in the changing places unit. And they do often require you to give synoptic links between them. And that's actually where you have to have the step up of remembering, just because you're on the urban question paper, does not mean you can't forget all your changing places. They're linked. Geography is a holistic subject. One part does not be isolated from another part. They're both holistically linked, and you must compare other aspects of the syllabus to gain A star, A grade. Then, however, your 20-mark questions are going to be a lot more difficult to handle, because these are the biggest step up from GCSE. They require a much larger response than you will be used to. And if you want my best tip for getting an A star, it's mastering your technique. The 6 criteria you must always follow is knowledge, concept, scale, assessment, your analysis, one in the same arguably, your evaluation and conclusion. That's a different video I've done. Please go and watch that. I think that will massively help your exam structure. And then also your ability to make synoptic links between your topics. So this would be always crucial. So often in coast and water and carbon, they go hand in hand, because carbon is all about the level of stores, how that is affecting us in terms of our atmosphere, climate change and sea level rise. They are synoptic links between those 2 topics. That's what examiners want to see. They don't want to see you isolating your topics. They want to see a holistic bringing them together. And there is a worked example I have done, which you can see that as well. Moving on to the next section, case studies. How important are they? Well, if you've done GCSE, which I'm assuming most of you have, you'll know how important case studies are. I'm surprised if anybody ever got 6 out of 9 in my school or higher if they never actually mentioned a case study, because half of it is knowing the location and where you must be. These are even more essential at A-level, where even your 4 markers often require a case study. Those are more based on concepts in case, but every single time you must have an example for the topic you've done. Whether it's level of a drainage basin, have an example of a drainage basin, a rainforest, have an example of a rainforest, have key facts in your brain when you go into your exam. But at the same time, you're given a lot of case studies at A-level, a lot. Maybe you had 3 or 4 per unit GCSE. Some people might be shocked when I said this, but my school, we had about 15 case studies per topic, and that's 6 topics that you'll study for A-level. Do the maths on there, you're nearly up to about 80 case studies or more, I believe. That is a lot. You need to have a way for remembering your case studies by having them in a set layout, because that way it'll be easier to memorize, and that way you can, when it comes to your revision, you can just have them all in the same layout. But keep in mind, know your spec as well, because case studies are often given to you by your teachers, but also sometimes the board asks for a specific case study that you must know. The best example I can think of this is the Global Systems and Governance Unit, Section A, Paper 2, Human Geography, where the only case study they actually ask for properly is Antarctica in terms of a global system. But coastal landscapes, for example, often requires a larger, smaller number of case studies. So remember to know your spec and to have a greater number. My top tips for when you have to know your case studies is pick ones that you remember. And when I say pick ones you remember, that's because at A-Level, you make the case studies yourself. Normally your teachers would give you them or you do them together. No, at A-Level, at least at my school, we've made our own case studies. We had to do the research ourselves. They did mark them and check them for us, but we had to do them ourselves. Make sure as you're going along, you put all your facts and data into categories such as, was it social, was it economic, was it political, was it environmental, was it positive impact, was it a negative impact, was it a positive cause, a negative cause? Categorizing, assessing and evaluating your case study as you revise is going to make it so much easier in the exam. The third bullet point I've got here is even more important. Please have a set layout for your case studies when you make them, because this way it's easier to remember, and it's when it's put together, you can just print it out, use it as a slideshow presentation. It's much easier to then formulate your revision in your flashcards. So then you check your specification as well for what case studies you're likely to get asked per a topic. For changing places, it's quite a local based unit. You'll often be required to know a local area more detail, so therefore you need more local facts, whereas with global systems, it's more about the global world, the global perspective, so have more global known facts, such as the global population of a country, the global GDP of one country, whereas in changing places, more know about the local population of a country, maybe what's its culture, what's the city's crest, for example. Know your details and differences. Often your teacher will give you a basis to start, but don't use what they've given you just going along that. You need to do extra research at A-Level. No, you don't have to be doing referencing, things like that, because you're not going to get asked to reference in your exam. But you will need to have some extra knowledge. They're not meant to give you all of it. At A-Level, they're meant to teach you how to be a bit more independent. Whether they actually do that or not, I don't know. That's going to vary school to school. But in reality, you will need to have more than what they give you as well. And then this is what I'm going to explain when I say how to lay out your case studies. This is how I laid out all of mine. I had a massive booklet ready for when I was revising, a layout for each of your case studies that you're going to use. In each of the boxes, the name of the case study, a map or a photograph of the case study, topic and keywords, impact, positive, negative, the location, pre-context, maybe surrounding the idea, what was undertaken in terms of, was it regeneration, was it a flood, was it restoration, was it investment into an area after a global system? What are the evaluative points of your case study? So were there any failures in the case study? And then a little box for your temporal and your spatial scale. And this will be about including facts that have occurred over time, were the impacts long or short term, or were they occurring over a small area, so maybe just your local town, or was it affecting the whole county or the whole city or the whole country? Keep those in mind as well. So like I've done here, this is a basic example that I had. I used this for my contemporary urban environments case study for when I studied urban resurgence. And we studied the jewellery quarter in Birmingham near my local area. So as I've written here, name of the case study, jewellery quarter. The unit was contemporary urban environments, urban change and regeneration. I've got a map of it, some keywords. So when I think of the topic, what keyword do I need to include in my essay? So I think of the industrialisation, urban dereliction, secondary sector, tertiary, gentrification, all those kinds of things. A few examples of positive impacts. So 40% of the jewellery quarter still makes our jewellery in the UK. There was attraction of private investment, so private businesses such as Travelodge. Some negative impacts, so air pollution, water pollution, unaffordable for some communities. The descriptive location, so where is the jewellery quarter? We're geographers, we like a good map, we like to know where our things are. That is a key idea. The pre-context, so where is the jewellery quarter? What's it all about? Why is it called that? What was undertaken, so urban policy, what was done, the areas regenerated through government, community groups, temporal, spatial ideas. Has it maintained an economy as strong as before? Now only employs 6,000 people, whereas before had 50,000 people. And then other facts that you might have, for example, could be agencies that were involved, number of people. Now keep in mind, I haven't got an evaluative section for this one, but that's because positive and negative impacts are arguably your evaluative points, but that is normally how I would lay them out, and that's how I suggest for you to lay them out. Well, how does this help, you're wondering as well? You might think, oh no, I like to do a mind map, or I like to have a range. Studies have shown having a set format for all your notes will make them easier to comprehend and to focus. This was why it was so much easier for me to remember a large level of case studies where my friends sometimes panicked because they didn't know how many they had to learn. Whereas if you make them as you go along, it's going to be so much easier because you've broken down the facts. Having a set format will make it so much easier to remember as well. But if you have another method, please go and do that as well. If you prefer mind maps, if you prefer flashcards, use those, but make sure it's the same every time, because that way it will sink in. So maybe do a mind map, list your case studies. That's another good thing I have as well. I had a table of all 6 units and all my different case studies that I needed to know for each unit, because I could get asked one of those each time. So please keep that in mind also. Then we finally move on to the one that a lot of people have asked for, which is my tips for how to manage and choose your coursework, your NEA, which is known as the non-examined assessment. These are the main bits I'd like to talk about. So it's a fundamental aspect to the A-Level Geography course. It's a 3,000 to 4,000 word report. And the bit that I like to stress to everybody, basically it can be anything you want. Anything that you would like to study, it's world's your oyster, as long as it's related to geography, obviously. It could be anything you want, because it's 20% of your A-level grade. You need to be passionate about it, you need to enjoy it, you need to know about it, you want to see if there's any impact in what you're investigating. It's out of 60 marks, and normally if you want to get an A star, you need 53 out of 50, about 53, 55 marks out of 60 if you want to get an A star. That's very difficult. It is very, very difficult. To get top marks, there's a lot of things you'll need to do if you want to access that band. So here we go, we're going to start off basic, and we're going to talk about what you could do in your coursework if you're looking for ideas. So these are different examples I've done based on every different unit. So if you're doing coast, if you want to investigate the coastal system, you could maybe investigate beach morphology. So how is the beach changing in terms of its gradient, the level of sand or the lack of sand, the rock shapes, are they becoming more rounded, are they becoming angular? Have you got an impact of tourism going on? And that was what I did my project on, the level of tourism being affected in the area and the level of flooding. If you're doing ecosystems, this could be coast as well. You can investigate sand dunes, humus composition, how is that changing as you move along the sand dunes. If you're doing changing places, you could compare towns nearby and far away, maybe demographics, economic structure. So there's one town in the UK more based on industry and agriculture maybe, whereas the other one's more on the tertiary sector, you know, shopping, hotels, tourism. Maybe investigate why is that. Do different cities have different factors influencing them? Urban environments, air and water pollution, population. Maybe you could compare the number of retirement homes in your city between now and 15 years ago. Resources, so changing energy uses. Maybe if you've got an area that's now switching to more renewable sources. Water and carbon, brilliant one. Flood risk, if you're in areas such as Wales, Llanberis, we did a case study there. Brilliant idea to investigate. What are the different factors that affect it compared to an area that doesn't often have flooding? Or if you're near a glacial landscape, old or new, if it's still there, if it's not, maybe investigate that. Why is it no longer like that? What have the impacts been because of glacial retreat or developing glaciers? The idea of what's happening, that equilibrium of your zone of ablation to accumulation. These are all going to be based off what you've studied before. So don't think you're going, oh, I don't know what to pick. It needs to be related to what's in the course as well. So when I give you some tips for mastering the NEA, these are what I would give you. I can do a whole other PowerPoint if people want to on how to do coursework. This is just the broken down, shortened version. Pick a topic in geography you'd like, because you need to be passionate about it, because you'll be spending a long time on this. Our school, we nearly spent nearly a year doing our coursework. We'd only just finished it before the lockdown. So you need to make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure the topic's doable. Don't make it too easy, but don't make it too hard, because it's not about making something revolutionary. You're an A-level student, you've got a lot to do right now. They're not expecting you to perform dissertation level work or master's work or PhD. The most impressive reports and exams and results that people get are the ones who picked ordinary topics and explored them extraordinarily well, because they knew how to bring their own spice or a new zest or some creativity to a basic topic. If you're looking for how to structure them, go to the AQA website and read what each of the 4 areas of the NEA are. There's 4 areas. There's introduction, there's your fieldwork methodology, there's your analysis, and there's your conclusion. But what you have to put in those, go onto their website and look at them. I'll leave a link to that. And then also there's specimen material as well. I'll leave a link to that as well. I'll give you an A-star example. I think I'll leave you a link in the description for a coast example and a one that got a very low mark. So it gives you the ability to distinguish. I know this is going to sound like a broken record as well. Have your work saved. Always save your work on Office 365, the cloud, and memory sticks, something. Because we had a lot of people in our year who lost half their coursework because they didn't save it. And then the best one, if you do EPQ, you're already masters at this, remember to reference, learn to reference, because a lot of people lose marks, they've not even bothered to reference or had a range of sources, they've wasted their time. It's basic ground for what university is like. If you don't put your effort into this coursework, I have to argue people sometimes, is that, are you really interested in university, what you want to do? Because this is what university is arguably like, where you have to independent research, going out in the field, doing this all yourself. It really does show you what your passions are at times, which is why I like it a lot. Developing that further, make sure it's doable, just reminding you, pick a topic that you like, go to the websites, check the model answers, and have your work saved always, and learn to reference. I just like giving people reminders, that's why I put it twice. And then your deadline, I like to give people reminders on that. Please stick to your deadlines that your teachers give you, because that way it's so much easier to manage. You won't get your feedback as much as you need in terms of timing to make the adjustments and as much quality. And you will have a lot of work to be building up with as you do your A-levels, especially if you're finishing your coursework in your second year, because that's so much harder when you have to have a lot more exams to revise for, and that is going to waste your time so much when you could just stick to your deadlines, have a good management plan. It might be a bit more annoying because you're having to focus on it a lot more, but you'll feel so much more relieved when you've handed it in on time. And that is everything if you want to master Geography A-Level with my tips here. So please, if you want to, please like, comment, subscribe, and please follow my Instagram handle, Jamie the Geographer. This is because I can send you any of the PowerPoints. You can request ideas for videos, and that will allow us to have this channel more tailored to what people need. I want it to be something that's really useful to people. And that is everything. I hope you really enjoyed today's video. I'm trying to make them shorter than they normally are because I know they can be a bit long. And that is what I would give you my best advice for. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.